Take us back. The ISMO, as it's known, it's been on the table, it's considered an essential part to getting independent power producers into the grid, given the fact of the conflict of interest that Eskom has as the single buyer and purchaser of electricity. Where are we in the process at this stage of including this independent system operator?
Well, we're at the stage where it's been decided to do so in principle. And what is not clear yet is exactly which model we will follow. The world has various models. Our legacy of a single entity, Eskom, controlling essentially all aspects of electricity is very, very unusual in the world, especially in the modern world where such power producers and distributors and grid owners, that's transmission lines over long distances, have been unbundled and partly privatized and liberalized, and there's a tendency all over the world towards competitive markets. For example, in the EU, it is actually forbidden for any member of the EU to regulate energy trade. It has to be completely free trade by any producer to any consumer. And so what's happened in South Africa is more fundamental than just issues regarding our crisis and Eskom's inability to generate new capacity quickly. But we just don't have the money. The cost of producing enough energy for any kind of decent growth rate in South Africa is not available and will have to come from private investors and from more efficient use of existing generating capacity. So the idea is to have an independent system operator, meaning that the transmission over long distances will be out of the control of Eskom, and Eskom will be, much like South African Airways, for example, at an airport, one of the people using the network on some sort of level playing field.
Now, as far as I know, the ISMO has been ring-fenced within Eskom. There is a man already, Yusuf Havaji, has been set up to run this ISMO, and funds have been set aside to get it up and running. At this stage, what is your thoughts on creating this phased approach to introducing it, as opposed to the big bang approach where we just introduce a system operator that is completely outside of Eskom?
Well, that's what the purpose of this conference is, for which we have top international experts and speakers with lots of experience, especially in our BRIC partner countries, from Brazil and India, for example, and then Scandinavia, which has a very efficient and effective market, the United States. And so these experts will help us, and local experts, to decide which model, in fact, to follow. You say ring-fenced within Eskom, many people would immediately say, but that means it's not independent.
But of course, aren't there risks attached to creating a completely independent system operator, as opposed to having one included with Eskom and phasing this out in case something goes wrong with electricity supply?
Yes, that's like saying there are risks involved in having airports owned by AXA as opposed to South African Airways, and most people would regard that unbundling of the operation as successful, or for that matter harbours or roads which can be used by government-owned and private independent power producers, equivalent private hauliers on the roads, or for that matter rails. You know, they're all the same model. You should separate the network owner or the infrastructure owner from the supplier and producer, and should it be a big bang, should it be phased in? That's what will be debated. I think the world's experience shows that we certainly need to move in that direction, and there are a number of models. One is, should it be itself privately owned? Should it continue to be owned, the grid, as opposed to the system and market operation by Eskom? Should their power producers be able to freely trade over Eskom's grid at pre-agreed fixed rates? This decision, by the way, to bring in 30% of independent power producers into the market, the 30%, of course, is just a nice round number, an approximation, roughly a third, say, was made long ago, and it hasn't happened.
At this stage, what type of contribution are independent power producers making to the grid?
Well, firstly, they're not making any contribution to the grid at all because they can't get onto it. That's the problem. What they are doing is generating a great amount of electricity for themselves. A company like Tongaat, for example, needs its power capacity only when it's milling sugar, but for the rest of the year it has energy it would like to be selling, and for the time being can't do so. And many companies, Anglo-American for example, and companies like Exxaro want to go into the market. So the role of power producers is currently minuscule, and the idea is to step it up very rapidly as possible, to somewhere in the vicinity of a third. I don't think many people are wedded to the number. The idea is just to solve our problem of a lack of capital, not a lack of expertise and technology on the part of Eskom, but a lack of money with which to build new capacity, nuclear power, wind power, coal power, whatever it might be, and to use existing capacity get it fed into the grid. That's the quickest and best. And you know, everyone who understands economics knows the quickest, simplest solution to a shortage is to raise the price. But of course people want a low price and stability. You can't get both. You can't get security and a low price. Well, so the other thing to do is to get new capacity into the market with maximum expedition.